This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.
Hey, it's John Hall, the senior editor of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine, and sitting across from me is a German brewmaster who is doing some really amazing things that we're going to talk about in a minute. Marc Rauschmann, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me.
Before we get into this conversation, I just want to say that as the brewing industry's premier choice for glycol chilling, G&D Chillers has set the standard on quality, service, and dedication to their customers' craft. For 25 years, G&D has led the way on innovative solutions that match their brewing customers' immediate and future needs. With a wide selection of custom-built chillers, G&D offers the Nano Chiller, the perfect solution for nano breweries, all the way up to their larger capacity units like the Vertical Air Chiller, built for higher volume operations. Contact G&D Chillers today for your chiller sizing needs at 1-800-555-0973 or reach out online at gdchillers.com. This episode is also brought to you by the American Homebrewers Association, an organization that celebrates the hobby of homebrewing, protects the rights of homebrewers, and provides members with world-class brewing resources. And finally, great craft beers are made from select ingredients. With BSG, you'll bring the world to your brewhouse with an unparalleled and diverse selection of ingredients from across the globe to just down the road. Our dedicated customer service team and industry experience provides you with the assistance you need every step of the way. Let BSG be your supplier of choice for products essential to making great artisanal beverages so you can stay focused on your craft. For more information, you can visit them at bsgcraftbrewing.com or contact them at 1-800-374-2739. Dr. Rauschmann, I should say, help me with the pronunciation of your brewery.
BraufactuM.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a hard M and a capital M on the back of the back of your name, which I was struggling with. So BraufactuM.
Yeah, the M stands for manufacturing, so it's handmade, and Brau means brewing, though it's a little bit like craft brewing, translated to the German consumers. Yeah.
I want to talk about your brewery. I want to talk about the recipes that you're making and sort of the innovation that you've brought. But I realize that it's been a while since I've actually checked in on what is happening in the German brewing scene these days. You know, globally, it's so hard to sort of keep a handle on everything that's happening. And in traditional brewing countries like Germany, I feel like even 10, 15 years ago, it was easier for those of us who were covering beer or drinking beer or thinking about beer to figure out what was happening in other countries. But now with 7,500 breweries here in the U.S. and just a global brewing scene, some of the more traditional countries, I think, aren't necessarily top of mind for some of our drinkers over here. So I'm wondering, how do you describe the German brewing scene for somebody who hasn't checked in a while?
I think Germany is a little bit like the other traditional beer countries like UK or Belgium. And these two countries, in Germany, we, of course, as you know, we have a lot of different styles, variation, and very tasteful beer. And these three countries gave the ideas to the craft brewers, but on the other hand, these countries were very sure that they had enough and didn't need to look over the borders. And this happened at different times in these three countries. In Germany, I would say 2010, when we started, this opened the mind to some other brewers. And since then, the craft brewing scene started in Germany. So that means we are maybe 20 years behind the United States concerning craft beer. But on the other hand, a lot of things are happening in Germany from the existing breweries. So we already have 1,400 something. So you started with 30. So that means not everything is a new brewery, but the brewers start to think about dry hopping, other styles. So a lot of things are changing, but as it took time in the United States, it takes time in Germany too.
Where is the progress going right now? Are there still... I mean, I know there's still traditional breweries that will never change, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm wondering, where are the consumer palates these days? Like, what are people looking for when you're out talking with them? Are they looking for tradition? Are they looking for new, rare, and local, which seems to be driving the U.S. market these days?
I think both fit very good together, and I'm very happy that not everything changing. Though, like United States, a lot of styles are now very much hopped, and not all styles need dry hopping in that way. So, and I see in the United States and in Germany that people like to have a lager, a pilsner, and the same people start to drink other styles, but that doesn't mean that they don't like pilsner style anymore. What we see is that more and more, especially younger people, younger means of course they are over 18, but younger than the normal German beer drinker, start to go into the craft beer world. And these consumers normally, some of them we would lose for beer consumption at all. So this is very important, not only for the craft beers, it's for the whole beer market, very important to bring these people to our nice products. When we started, it was more off-premise business because the people in the restaurant, they didn't know anything about craft beer, and it's not possible to sell something you don't know and you don't like personally. But now we have, especially in the bigger cities like Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, but more Berlin and Hamburg, we have more and more people in the restaurants which want to have variation and new styles, and so now it's more and more on-premise. What again is important to sell the beer off-premise. So both is very important to for the category.
Yeah. So BraufactuM is part of the Radeberger Group, right? That's the sort of larger.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Radeberger is certainly one of the beers that we've known here in the U.S., and it's certainly a wonderful established German brewer. But you were sort of tasked with or given the opportunity to sort of see where you could take beer, to sort of break out of the, traditional, the traditions, as it were.
Yeah.
Walk me through that, because I've talked with other brewers in the past, and it can be a difficult thing to sort of, especially if you're part of a larger brewing group, to sort of break with tradition in a meaningful way that doesn't necessarily feel like it is, just a marketing grab or just a, somebody trying to, pretend to be hip or something. It's, the guy who dresses younger, even though he's older, kind of thing. Walk me through, what did you start with? How did you get into the mindset of, okay, we need to differentiate and we're going to start here? Did you go all the way to the extreme, or did you build up to it, or what was the...
Yeah, first of all, the Radeberger Group is the biggest German brewing group, but it's privately owned. So we got the opportunity and the freedom to do what we thought is necessary to do. That's very important. And on the other hand, the Radeberger Group stands for quality and for beer culture, German beer culture. And we see the new style, the craft beer we brew, as a good addition to the already existing German beer culture. When we started 2010, we traveled a lot because we thought it's very important to see what other countries, what other brewers do. And not only the brewers, the consumers and people selling the beer.
Sure.
And we were at a few really amazing breweries like Firestone Walker. We met Fritz Maytag at Anchor Steam, Sierra Nevada, Brooklyn Brewery. And all of these brewers said, oh, you're a great beer country, but you are the first visiting us. And that was very typical for the German brewer. Of course, they travel for fun and for holidays, but they never travel to other countries visiting other brewers and see what they do. And
for research, for inspiration.
Yeah. Because everything we did in the past 100 years maybe was product development was inside our own style. Styles. Maybe the last, say, craft beer development was Pilsner style, which was invented by a Bavarian brewmaster in Czech Republic and then came back. So it was a little bit like that. But after that, we, over the last decades, we never looked what other countries do. So when we came back, or when I arrived in the United States and had my first IPA, I couldn't believe that we don't have this amazing style in Germany. And for example, I was very much impressed by the Union Jack from Firestone Walker, because it's very hoppy. But
What a wonderful beer.
Yeah, what a wonderful beer. And the Double Jack and all these beers are so good balanced. So I looked up what Matt Brynildsen did and still is doing at that brewery. So we came back and said we have to brew our own IPA. But with a German twist, with our ideas. I think it's a little bit boring just to copy a style, taking US hop and doing it in Germany. Nobody needs that. But we combine that beer with a German hop, and we brew it with a little bit more malt body and balance. And everybody drinking beer says, "Oh yeah, I taste the German way of brewing." So we came back and started brewing international styles like the IPA, like Scotch ale, like now brown ale, pale ale. But also we looked in the German tradition. So we took up some German styles like the Kölsch, which interesting is to see that it was dry hopped until the Second World War. Mm-hmm. So it was unfortunately lost, but it was already done. So we now produce a dry hopped Kölsch. We have a Schwarzbier and a smoked wheat. For both, we have won silver medal at World Beer Cup. What a great thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and we have a combination of styles like a wheat IPA. So we started with 9 styles, and now we have 16. And together with our own beers we decided to start with a good collection of international brands. So we used to import Brooklyn, Firestone Walker. We have some Belgian beers. So it was a good collection of our own beers and other beers. But coming back to your question, we wanted to have the whole or part of the most important styles. We had sour beers, barrel-aged beers. And looking back, of course, we made maybe for some consumers 3 steps in one, because we have seen this in the United States, but you didn't start with double IPA and barrel-aged Imperial Stout. At the beginning, you had Anchor Steam, you had Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Sure. But even Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, I think I've had this conversation before, it's like 32 IBUs. I mean, it is so low on the bitter scale in compared to what's out there today, but it was revolutionary at the time. If people are like, well, you can't have a beer that hoppy out on the market, and here we are today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but on the other hand, 32 bitter units is quite normal for German Pils. Mm-hmm. So of course we wanted to have a good difference to German styles. But now we go a little bit back, we go back and say, okay, we want to bring the consumer step by step to even more intensive beers. But we produced a dry hop Pilsner, which is a nice beer, but it's the next step for consumers liking unfiltered beer. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit like what happens in the United States. So coming back from all these very hoppy beers now, more sessionable beers are very famous in the United States.
I'll let you take a sip of your cappuccino, and I do want to thank my local coffee shop here in Jersey for hosting us today. While you're doing that, I will point out that SCA Fabricating is the industry's leading choice for packaging line automation, specializing in depalletizing, repalletizing, conveyance, rising, drying, fill detection, and date coding. SCA Fab has over 600 installations in breweries, wineries, and distilleries worldwide. With a reliable team of engineers dedicated to fast, reliable customer service, you can count on them to provide systems custom-tailored for your specific needs. Contact SCA Fab today at area code 970-403-8562 or reach out online at scafabricating.com. Dr. Rauschmann, so you were talking about IPA, and what I found really interesting was, not just recreating the American style IPA, but trying to put a German twist on it. And one of the great frustrations that I've always had, and this was maybe back in 2010 and maybe through 2015 or thereabouts when I was traveling internationally, and people were saying, well, this is our American IPA, and I'd be in parts of Europe or South America or wherever, and there was this desire to replicate what the U.S. was doing with this no holds barred hop, like let's just hop the hell out of it until the end of the day kind of thing. But everywhere else that I traveled, it seemed like it was the brakes were on, that there was great restraint being used because, why would you ever need to use that much hops? And I think that that's starting to change now. But when you marry what's sort of the German brewing tradition with the modern American traditions that are being made, where do you try to find the balance? Like, how do you want people? I imagine that you want people to recognize that this is inspired by, but still very much a German product. Like inspired by the U.S., but still very much a German product. So how do you create that balance?
So we splitted the process. So on the one hand side, we created the basic recipe, what means the good malt basis and the body to balance the bitterness. So we brewed different brew in the pilot plant until we were happy with this basic beer. And then whenever we try new hops, we always try single hop doing dry hopping, because otherwise you cannot understand the hop, the individual hop. So we did a lot of different dry hoppings with hops we thought they are interesting. In 2010, I had already bought a very small quantity of Citra. Now Citra is a very, very famous hop. In 2009, when I have bought a small quantity, it wasn't so famous. It was just the beginning of Citra. It was more everything about Cascade. And especially in Germany, it was difficult to get it for the European market. So I had this, and I couldn't use it for another beer I already had in the market. So I thought I want to have Citra in my IPA because I fell in love with that hop. And I wanted to combine it with German hops. You know that during this time and a little bit later, because of this development and craft beer revolution, new German hop varieties came into the market. But I thought that even the old traditional varieties are
some of the noble hops and
some of the noble and even of the bitter hops. So I think that the differentiation is not there only because the bitter hops have more bitter acids. It doesn't mean that they don't have a nice aroma. But anyway, every German hops, no German hops was tested for dry hopping. So I thought we have to do a trial with the German hops and to see which is interesting to dry hopping. And we did a lot of different trials, and we found out that the Hallertau Mittelfrüh is an amazing hop.
Sure.
And it's a good reason why Samuel Adams is using that hop. And thanks to them that this amazing variety is still there in the Hallertau, because not so many brewers took it.
Yeah, no, Sam Adams Boston Lager early on,
Yeah.
Jim Cook made a commitment to it.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, that's great. And it's an amazing hop. And so then we started to blend the beer with the different hops, and we found out that the marriage between Citra and Hallertau was amazing. And that's a good reason, because the German hop region, or the German hops, and the American hops from the Northwest are so different in their aroma profile. And so that's very interesting to bring these two hops together. And because we have only half of this intensive citrus hop, not a Cascade or Simcoe, something like that added, the noble German hop makes it a little bit more soft in the aroma. But doesn't mean that there are even more different hop oils, but in a different intensity. And they would fit very well together. And then we did different trials with different quantities of these hops, and
this was revolutionary, right? I mean, this was something that not a lot of other German brewers were doing.
I'm very sure that 2010 it was the first IPA, the Progusta from us, which we introduced to the market. Of course, there were maybe home brewers doing this stuff, but there was nothing in the market. And yes, it was very
2010,
revolutionary, because the interesting thing is that the German Brewers Association, and especially the Bavarian section, and all the brewers thought that dry hopping is not in accordance with the purity law. So they didn't want to do that, but we said in the purity law we have the 4 ingredients. So of course we can we are allowed to put hops later into the fermenter. So we did it, and 2 years later they announced that it's in accordance with the purity law.
So this is the interesting thing, and the Reinheitsgebot is. I'm pausing here because I want to choose my words very, very carefully. It is probably the most misunderstood part of global brewing. You know, everybody's just sort of, if it comes up and you know a little bit about beer, you'll just talk about it as the purity law. And it doesn't actually explain what it is or how it impacts brewers or anything. So having a trained professional German brewmaster sitting across from me right now, I would love for the quick history lesson, at least. Take your time, but on what the Reinheitsgebot is and what you've encountered that, especially the U.S. audience might get wrong about it. This is a chance to set the record straight.
Yeah, good question.
For your entire country, you're now the representative. Yeah.
Even in Germany, it's sometimes misunderstood. First of all, the Reinheitsgebot is a very, very good thing because normally for classic beer and even for an IPA, no brewer needs more than malts, hops, yeast, and water. Yeah. Normally, every IPA should be in accordance to the purity law or lager and pilsner style. And the Reinheitsgebot prevents brewers, if they brew in accordance to that law, to use other ingredients. And there are other possibilities like unmalted barley together with enzymes. A lot of things make brewing easier, but a good brewer doesn't need that. So first of all, it's a very, very good thing to think about the ingredients. Concerning other styles, like, for example, a wit, a framboise, the Reinheitsgebot wasn't done for these styles even 500 years ago. And even in Germany, the Reinheitsgebot is not the law. Our law allows it to do other styles, special beers, and that makes sense. But it doesn't allow to make cheaper beer because it's, of course, possible to use other ingredients to have the whole production easier and cheaper. And it's good that this is not allowed. And for me, the idea of the Reinheitsgebot would even work for other styles. For example, even craft brewers, if they make new styles or fruit beers, they use aroma instead of fruits. Yeah. And I think aromatized fruit beers have nothing to do with craft. So I think some bigger craft brewers should think about the ideas of the purity law and translate that for other styles in the same way, only using natural fruits, natural ingredients. And that's what the Reinheitsgebot means for the 4 ingredients, but you could see it wider for other styles. And yeah, that's it. Maybe you have some more questions concerning that. I'm not sure whether.
Well, I'm just sort of curious. So, are you saying that there are some brewers who have just gotten so far away from, I guess, the essence and the original intent of beer that it's sort of time to come back and look at what can be done with just the 4 primary ingredients?
In Germany, of course, all brewers brew the classic styles in accordance with the purity law.
Yes.
And if we do new styles, like a brewer does a wheat beer or pumpkin ale, we mostly use I think all brewers, new craft brewers, use the very natural ingredients. But what I like to say is that international brewers, big brewers or small brewers, should, if they don't need any other ingredients for the style, they should, of course, brew in accordance with purity law and use the purest ingredients. But even for new styles, for a brewer, I think it's very important to use pure ingredients and not make it easier to use fruit aroma, syrup, or sweeteners. And I know that it's sometimes used for special beers.
Yes.
And it's not special to use sweeteners and aroma. You should even for other styles, take up the idea. The Reinheitsgebot wasn't done for these styles, but the idea is to use pure ingredients. And I think this could help even for other styles in other countries.
One of the things that I found very interesting when you were talking about Kolsch was that it was dry hopped, and then that was sort of lost to time. I was talking with Fal Allen, who just wrote the book on Goza not too long ago, and he was rediscovering aspects of that style that have been lost to the ages. And I think as brewing has progressed, certain traditions have just been sort of things that were passed down might have been forgotten or changed. Everybody tries to put their own spin on it. But have you spent more time looking into other styles that might have changed and what was being done in the past that you could bring back into the forefront today?
Yes, at the moment I'm just reading the book from Horst Dornbusch about dark lager. The whole book just about dark lager. It's very interesting to see the history, and in every book there are interesting aspects for new beers or taking up old tradition. The interesting thing is that a lot of brewers say that they use old recipes. Nobody is using old recipes because we have hopefully a modern brewery, and recipe always means something what fits to your equipment. And nobody would like to drink beer brewed with a 100-year-old recipe.
Yeah.
Because craft brewing for me means using the best modern equipment. And if we look back to history, we want to take up the ideas of that time, like dry hopping, but of course bring it in the modern time and to do it with the best quality and with the knowledge of today. Yeah? And then it makes sense. And it's very interesting to see what brewers in former times did.
When you compare something, a recipe from the past versus how it is now, is there something that you can point to as how it's changed? If we had one recipe in one hand and today's and the other, what are the main differences that you've seen from reading recipes and putting things into practice?
It depends on the style, of course. In former times, we didn't have any real pale ale because we didn't have the malt. We had different boiling systems. That means if we brew a beer, mostly we add more different malts and add some darker malts, caramel malt, to have a little bit more color in the beer, which in former times we had to because of the boiling system. Then of course we had the beers in former times were more smoky, because if you go back to the beginning of the 19th century, before indirect heating was used, all beers or all malt and all beers were more and more or less smoky. So we have one smoked beer where we add this malt
Purposefully, right?
Yeah, but in former times, or even if now I have some smoked beers, the smoke is not very pleasant. So I think it was the same in the past. So then before Louis Pasteur has found out that the yeast is doing the work, a lot of beers were sour, and I think to produce a sour beer, for example, is a big challenge, because it's easy to make a beer sour. It happens,
right? Yeah,
but it's not a good beer.
Intentional or not?
To have a good balanced beer, then the usage of the different dark malts and the composition is a very interesting thing, because in former times there weren't so many different malts. They were happy if from the moment they had a really dark malt. Before it wasn't possible to didn't get that. Then the hop variation. Of course, dry hopping was done for the IPA and even for the Kölsch, but I think it was mostly done to prevent beer becoming sour. So it wasn't done so much
anti-spoilage and
but the beer didn't taste like that fresh. It didn't have that fresh fruity character, and for I think the hop, the storage of the hop with pellets, good packaged, under cool condition, wasn't possible in former times. So the beer maybe tasted more cheesy because the hop was oxidized.
Sure.
And the possibility to have fresh hop over the whole year because it's stored under good condition, that's pretty new. So even dry hopping in the past had a different aim, and the result was totally different to that what happens today.
One of the things that I found interesting that you pointed out was that there hasn't necessarily been a new style out of Germany. You talked about Pilsner early on, and then the Czech Republic's part in that as well. But as you are trying to innovate and trying to bring new flavors to the forefront for German beer drinkers, you're obviously looking at the history, but where do you look to the future? Like what are you trying to focus on right now to try to innovate, or is there an area of study or an area of brewing practice that you're excited to explore to just see what happened? I mean, every style was born from somebody just taking a chance and somebody just exploring.
Good question. Looking back to the history is, of course, just one part. The other is I travel a lot, 2 to 3 times in the United States. Last year was 3 times in Russia. I go to a lot of different countries in Europe. And whenever I go back, I had new impressions. So, for example, 4 or 5 years ago, we were with a group at the West Coast, Northwest, in Yakima Valley. And directly on the hop farm, we found a very interesting new hop, HBC 431. And
does it have a name yet, or is
no,
it still just a number?
I don't think it has a name yet. Okay. Sometimes it's more interesting to have a number.
Very true, yeah.
And as we had so many West Coast IPAs over that week, we came back and said, okay, we have a hop, we have a style. And we already had one IPA, but there's so much space to have a second. And we created our West Coast IPA. Then another year, we had a lot of saisons, and we thought we would like to have a Belgian-style beer. And we don't use any herbs or spices. We have for that saison we use
really?
Very special hop Enigma from Australia. And,
oh sure, yeah.
And it tastes a little bit like white pepper, and like there were spices in, very interesting, but without any spices. Again, in accordance with purity law, very very interesting. So we have a lot of styles we would like to brew, and we have a lot of different hops we have in our program, which we like but didn't fit to a style yet. So we keep them and have them for the new style. And last year we were very much influenced by the idea to, as I mentioned, to bring more consumers into the craft beer world. That's why we created the dry hop Pilsner and a little bit softer pale ale.
On the Pilsner front, I mean, Germany, I think I hope forever, just simply because it is a global treasure, as it were, is known for lagers, known for Pilsner, is known for these, solid styles of beer that are, worthy of your glass, as it were. You travel around a lot, and I'm sure that you chased a lot of interpretations of German-style lagers and pilsners. And I'm not necessarily asking you to call out anybody by name or make anybody feel bad. But have you noticed that, is there, I guess, a commonality if you're tasting some of these beers that call themselves a German Pilsner or a German lager that are very obviously not a German lager or a German Pilsner, that you wish you could just sort of say, why don't you think about it this way, or it should taste like this, or because styles are so loose these days. But I think when it comes to some of the more traditional pillars of beer, we can't necessarily play loose with that. So do you notice things that you wish brewers or home brewers or other things would take into account if they're going to make something that they call a German lager?
Very good question. At the beginning, when U.S. craft brewers started brewing lager and pilsner, some of them really didn't taste very, very pleasant.
Yeah.
And the craft brewers realized that it's much more difficult to brew in lager. And I think that opened the eyes a little bit because they started against lager styles, and then they realized that it isn't so easy to brew a lager because you cannot hide any unpleasant aromas with the hop, and the fermentation is more difficult. But this changed. Now I have had a few very good lagers, mostly from more bigger regional craft breweries.
Sure.
For example, I remember again Firestone Walker, the Pivo is no question is a really very good lager. Though I think it's a good reason why the bigger craft brewers with good brewmasters, they have the experience. They travel to Germany. They know how it has to taste. Firestone Walker had I think for 1 year or half a year a German brewer. He worked there. Not to say that he invented that beer, but they have a good contact to Germany. And I think that these brewers who know how it has to be done and have a good equipment, that they brew really, really good lagers.
What makes a German lager a German lager in your mind? If we had a perfect glass in front of us right now, how would you describe it?
It's dry. You don't have sweetness in that beer like you have in an IPA. It's crisp. You have a very clear bitterness. Normally you have only a very slight hop aroma. Of course, you could brew a dry hop pilsner. It's a different style, but the classic German pilsner has only a very slight hop aroma, but a very nice and clean bitterness. So from the malt, it's only a very slight malt character, but it's not too much.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very refreshing and clean product. So it must not have any too many fermentation byproducts. That's it. And if you look back to history, the ales and the top fermented beer were before the lagers. So and the lager came up together with Carl von Linde invented the cooling machine. So it was from that time possible to brew with under good condition, cooled, and to have a clean, nice product. Whereas before that, all the ales, nobody knew about the yeast. It was more every beer was different. So Pilsner stands for the good, clean, pleasant beer, and that's what it is today. Yeah.
As we start to wrap up, I'm going to ask you in a minute if you have a hope for beer. But first, I just want to thank all of our sponsors who help keep us on the air and keep us bringing fresh content every week, including G&D Chiller is the brewing industry's premier choice for glycol chilling. The American Homebrewers Association, which celebrates the hobby of homebrewing, protects the rights of homebrewers, and provides members with world-class brewing resources. And you can bring the world to your brew house with select ingredients from BSG. And also check out SCA Fabricating, which is the craft industry's leading choice for packaging line automation. Dr. Marc Rauschmann of BraufactuM in Germany, do you have a hope for beer?
Yes, I hope that worldwide the interaction between brewers and consumers go on like that. I hope that we have more and more variation all over the world. I hope that we bring more of that what you have in the United States to Germany, and have the good new styles together with the traditional styles. So I hope that we don't fight against each other. So I have seen that in the United States that to brew a good beer doesn't mean that the other brewer brews a bad beer. So the brewers in the United States, they talk much more about their own beer and not about what is bad with a bigger or smaller other brewer. And I hope that this happens all over the world, and especially in Germany, that the brewers talk about their beer, about what they do, and there's no need to talk about others in a bad way. I hope that we do more together and that we show the consumers how much fun it is to drink beer, to always means to use it in the right way and not to drink too much, but how nice it is to taste beer, to go to festivals, to meet the brewers. It's such a nice product, and I hope we all together work in this way and have fun together brewing and drinking beer.
I like that very, very much. And I like the interaction thing as well, because it strikes me that there is a lot of collaboration happening, and I like that you've come over to see what the U.S. brewers are doing, and you've traveled other places as well. And I wonder, aside from Firestone and maybe Sam Adams and some of the other larger brewers, how many of the smaller breweries are actually taking trips through Germany and trying to learn from the traditions and how they can sort of incorporate that into themselves. It's such a fun global brewing community right now. The internet has made the world so small that you can collaborate with people and have conversations with people on the other side of the world of what makes beer great. And I hope that I definitely hope that continues. I think that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for all of you for listening. If you have questions, dear listeners, guests you'd like to hear, topics you'd like addressed, you can reach out to me directly at John Hall, it's JOHNHOLL at beerandbrewing.com, or join the conversation on Twitter at John_Hall. Marc, if people want to find your brewery online, where can they do that?
Yeah, you have braufactum.de or .com, or you follow us on Instagram, Braufactum, or Facebook. And yes, you find our beers, of course, on Untapped.
Okay.
But write us on Facebook or nice post on Instagram.
Sure. And your beers are coming into the U.S. now.
Yes, we already have the IPA. We have on premise at a lot of accounts, and since this week we have very proud about that. We have the Robusta IPA in cans. Started at Total Wine, and I do the promotion this week and in May at West Coast. So if you like the beer, go and grab a 6-pack of Robusta IPA. Yeah.
A German IPA in a can. What a time to be alive. This is
I had
amazing.
The quality is pretty good. So we have it in Germany in the cool warehouse, and the condition at Total Wine are pretty good too. And the quality is perfect, and enjoy the beer and give me a comment if you like.
Wonderful. Thank you again so much for being here, and we will be back next week with a brand new episode. Cheers. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com, or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.